Mass Effect is a universe full of endless mysteries and possibilities, and with that comes some unique and interesting lore. Here are some of Mass Effect's weirdest and wildest pieces of canon that you might not know. First, Mass Effect has its own conspiracy theorist, Bernard Plim. Founder and president of the Conspiracy Accountability League, he took it upon himself to investigate and uncover secrets and cover-ups. He has written books about the secret Salarian STG, a book about a Salarian Dalatrass, and another book called What the Drell Don't Know and the Hanar Won't Say. He even knows about Task Force Aurora, the secret task force created by Admiral Hackett that led to the discovery of the Leviathan. At the height of his investigating the Aurora Task Force cover-up, he hacked the Alliance News Network and tried to share whatever information that he could. He was quickly arrested. He says he was possibly beaten and spent one night in jail alongside 5 drunk Elcor. All of his files and equipment were confiscated by C-Sec, so he had to use his grandmother's datapad to share the news about his arrest, but he vows to return. He may seem a little insane, and his blog may be really ugly, but his conspiracies are often rooted in truth. He also says he uncovered a Volus mafia on the planet Potavig, a unique planet unable to support most life because the surface is covered in a massive sea made up of liquid ammonia. These conditions had fostered a unique ammonia-based biosphere on the planet, so frozen areas are completely devoid of life. But within the cold seas, there are complex organisms, some of them even larger than a human. Here is where the Volus runs their own mafia that is apparently funded by the Alliance, if the words of a conspiracy theorist are true. Alongside his Volus mafia discovery, he also uncovered the illegal purchase of biological weapons from the Elcor planet of Dakuna. His blog also features other links to some other conspiracy theories, such as the ProtheansLive.com, and it's also where he begs for money. Eldfil Ashland Energy was the company responsible for spreading Element Zero on human communities. They were responsible for many biotics being born, orchestrated by Cerberus. But their CEO, Jonah Ashland, who can be seen at the casino, has a famous daughter who made the headlines often. Aish Ashland was arrested and put on trial for possession of the illegal biotic-enhancing drug, Red Sand. The famous socialite didn't understand why the stuff was illegal in the first place, and despite facing legal repercussions, she was unbothered, probably because she was extremely rich. She was famous enough to donate her DNA to the Hollywood Bank of Fame, except when she donated it, it wasn't actually her DNA. Bets on whose DNA it belonged to began in Las Vegas, while some bet that this was just another one of her publicity stunts. When it was finally revealed that the DNA she submitted was from her estranged fraternal twin Mina, it sparked even more controversy. She claimed that it was an apology to her sister, who she had been tormenting their entire lives. With her submitting Mina's DNA, she was apologizing for stealing all of her sister's boyfriends. Mina was never reached for comment, but all those gambling on it being Mina's DNA won big at the Las Vegas casinos, coming in at 42-1. Aish Ashland would later make headlines once again for selling her heart for charity, not the one currently in her chest, but one of the 2 spares she had grown from clone tissue at a lab on Earth. After a failed and quick marriage, she decided that the world should know that her heart has moved on. The heart sold for 115.6 million credits to the daughter of a multimillionaire. Surprisingly, it was for a good cause, as her father's heart was failing due to diabetic cardiomyopathy, so his heart would be replaced with Aish Ashland's. By 2185, humanity had begun changing quite a bit, and Ford versus Huerta pushed laws and conversations around sentience even further. After a stroke left the United North American States president legally completely dead, his body was transferred to cryocool for 90 minutes before his brain functions were transferred to a computer. The details of the transfer were never revealed, and how much memory degradation he suffered is still a mystery. But this attempt to keep him alive was extremely controversial. Some experts testified that the president would have been too brain dead to save. Some argued that his new computer brain was essentially just a VI with a partially organic operating system, and that it was no longer President Huerta. The case ended up in a 5-4 decision in favor of the president's last year being legitimate. So essentially, the United North American states were being governed by some kind of synthetic whose identity and ability to govern was being questioned constantly. The ruling was also so controversial that several protesters stood against the decision, chanting, "Down with the zombie." Riot police cleared the capitals with microwaves and stunners, but more protests were still planned. Late-night comedians even joked about the zombie cyborg president. It swept the country like wildfire, and the protests spread across the entire United Northern American states. There were 4 million in Mexico City, Los Angeles, Toronto, and New York, and they gathered en masse to protest being governed by a brain-dead cyborg. It became so bad that other countries were weighing in, both approving of the lack of violence at the protests but also calling for the end of them. The vice president, who had been the one to stand against President Huerta, stood with the protesters until she finally gave in to the decision. Nothing came from the protest, and President Huerta, aka the zombie cyborg, served the rest of his term. Later, a costume of President Huerta would become very popular, titled Zombie Huerta. This, alongside Geth Hunter, would be the most popular Halloween costumes in 2185. Every year on the Asari homeworld of Thessia, a 7-day convention called the One Future Summit is held. This summit is dedicated to ecological conservation, and 200,000 people visit in person, and 300,000 virtually. All proceeds go to conservational cost, and while this seems like a good altruistic thing, the Asari also hosts some kind of parallel underground convention called the One Chance Summit. Eco-terrorism seems to be the topic of choice for this convention. As far as controversies, the Asari have been known to have a few. In 2185, Athessia University had to suspend 17 students after it held a human history-themed costume party. The party was extremely racist towards human history, with the Asari dressing up as Adolf Hitler, Elizabeth Bathory, Caligula, and Pol Pot. They ate a cake shaped like the suicide bomber, and humans were not welcomed or even allowed at the party. Following the suspensions, more than 100 students protested by not going to their classes, and some humans even planned an Asari history-themed party to retaliate. Another controversial piece of news was when a video of several human CSEC officers were filmed beating a group of 3 Salarians so badly that one of them died. It went viral on the extranet, garnering millions of views. The details of what really happened remain a little suspicious, but after 2 CSEC officers stopped a Salarian on the Citadel for reckless driving, they found 2 more Salarians in the trunk. Attempting to restrain the Salarians was a challenge, and they fought back. So the officers electroshocked and beat the Salarians. When more officers arrived as backup, they simply joined in and continued to beat the Salarians until the driver died. Later reports revealed that the 2 in the trunk were apparently gang members hiding from a rival gang. And the Salarian driver who died was just giving a ride to some guys in trouble. A vigil was held in his honor. As for the CSEC officers, 4 were charged with excessive force, and that's it. The Turians also made news in another way. After a tragic accident, 4 Turian men took an opportunity to steal healthy organs from the dead at the overcrowded Haemona Medical Center. They posed as nurses and used fake ID cards to gain entry to the hospital's morgue. 2 ran interference, and the other 2, who were skilled in surgery for some reason, remove kidneys, lungs, and gizzards from the freshest corpses. What they planned to do with the body parts is unknown. The extranet is a weird place in Mass Effect, just like our own internet. It's how the Elusive Man spread his manifesto, it's where the Asari hold their government delegations, and it's where videos of weird things go viral. In 2185, Hierarchy General Pardonax accepted Separatist leader Tanis' challenge to a duel. Pardonax, who was an experienced and successful dueler, and Tanis, whose record was unknown, agreed to duel in a barrier room, where a barrier in the middle of the room drops and the duel begins. Whoever shoots first wins. Per Turian customs, the records were not intended to be made available to the public, as photographing dead Turians is considered a misdemeanor crime in times of peace, and during war is an even graver offense. General Pardonax won the duel. Tanis fired first but missed, but the general did not. And Pardonax continued to shoot the Separatist leader until his weapon overheated. Despite looking at dead Turians being illegal, the official recording of the duel was leaked, and a bootleg version was spread on the extranet, gaining over 710 million views. Memes were even made of it, to songs such as My Bitch Now. And while the extranet was used for taboo things like this, it was also used for more heartwarming things like a chess game that lasted for 12 years. Chess became really popular on the Elcor homeworld after humanity got their embassy on the Citadel. It became so popular that one game lasted for 12 years. It had several followers on the extranet that watched it over its many years, and they were sad to see it go. But lucky for them, the two players started a new game immediately after finishing the one that just lasted for 12 years. Sometimes there was good on the extranet, but in rare cases, the extranet itself was also used as some kind of weapon. In 2185, WeSee was a new bug that flooded the extranet, and it was targeting millions of users watching SimulStims, cutting into programs with static feedback that gave the users headaches or even seizures. Many users stopped watching SimulStim programs, with viewership dropping 80%. When programmers researched into what was happening, they discovered that the WeSee bug contained masked data. Rumors began circulating over what it truly was. Some believed it to be a Geth infiltration program, while some believed it to be a malfunctioning rogue AI. But unfortunately, the truth behind the program was less interesting. The company behind the WeSee bug turned out to be a new startup corporation, Shared Visions. The WeSee bug was intended to be an advertising program that delivered subliminal advertising for things like Razor Pumps, a line of athletic footwear. Of course, this caused major backlash for the new company, and more than 23 million extranet users came together to sue Shared Visions, and the company was most likely going to end up paying almost 4 billion credits in damages. In 2185, after a Turian was pulled over and his identity was checked, the truth about who he was revealed. Pretending to be CEO Jackson Borland for 2 whole years, Roland Quarn's identity was surprising. He had been impersonating a ton of different people, with some very weird and random jobs. A stunt driver, sous chef, martial arts instructor, ambassador, Varen tamer, news anchor, stand-up comedian, and CEO. He wasn't stealing their money, nor did he seem to be doing anything malicious. Instead, he was revered at the company. And when he got caught, he wished his pretend employees well after he fled from the police. After his escape, he would completely vanish until the following year. In 2186, humans were still newbies in the Citadel space, and they were still trying to fit in. So for the New Year's celebration, the New York Times Square Ball was moved from New York to the Presidium on the Citadel to celebrate New Year's with all the Citadel races. It was a pretty big deal. Unfortunately, 2 days before the ball was supposed to drop, it was stolen by none other than Roland Quarn. In place of the ball, he left a paper note with his handprint and signature claiming responsibility. How he actually managed this made no sense. because the ball was fully intact and assembled at the time. He would have needed to get it on the elevator, which would have been impossible. He may have used some kind of mass reducer to make it fit, but how he did it truly remained a mystery. The planners behind the event, now with no New Year's Eve ball, had to manage in other ways. So they created an emergency team to stage a pretend ball. During the final countdown, the Biotics lifted a mass into the sky, held it there with Singularity, then as the strobe lights fired in time with the New Year's, they pushed and pulled the sparkles into a tornado, and it rained down on the Citadel partygoers. It was a big hit. Later, the stolen New Year's ball was found intact on the Citadel, with a note from Roland Quarn himself. The note said, "CSEC needs funds. You can get anything onto this station." Mass Effect has a massive pop culture and entertainment scene. Places like Omega, Ilium, and the Silver Sun Strip are just the tip of the crazy nightlife scene. But there's so much more to it. There are plays, movies, celebrities, Super Bowls, fashion weeks, Galactic Video Music Awards, and even books and movies about Commander Shepard. Citadel is a movie about Commander Shepard's story and their involvement in the war. It's about Saren and the Geth and whether Shepard decided to save the Council or not. There are also movies about the Reapers, the Council, the massacre of Akuz, and other events of Shepard's life. Another movie you may remember from Tali's time with Shepard is Fleet and Flotilla, which became extremely popular. Winning several awards and pushing boundaries between Quarians and Turians, the movie inspired a relationship simulator, a soundtrack, a musical adaptation, and even a sing-along. Legion played 75 hours of the Fleet and Flotilla interactive cross-species relationship simulator, and after all that time, he got a very low score and was deemed hopeless. Another movie, The Nekia Corridor, caused Citadel space-wide productivity issues that were called the Nekia Flu. The movie became so popular that time off from work was given by bosses. People also called out from work, and the military even played the movie on repeat for their troops. The movie broke several records, made a ton of money, and became an overnight classic. There are several movies mentioned in Mass Effect, and while some of them are innocent movies about animals, like When Fauna Attacks, a movie purchased by Grunt, there's also some weirder ones. The 840-Year-Old Virgin is a comedy about a nerdy virgin, Asari. Talons, a horror film about Turians, is about them ripping apart human throats with their razor teeth. There's also Blasto Saved Christmas, an extremely popular holiday movie. Then there's She's a Keeper, a Guess What's Coming to Dinner Asari romantic comedy. Then Ruck Humpers, a Krogan war comedy that didn't really do well outside of its Krogan audience. There's also Rodan vs. Meta Godzilla. Then Milk Chic, a movie about a dairy-powered superhero. Can't Hardly Wait is a movie about a Krogan male learning how to date from a human woman. Call Me Sally is a comedy film about an undercover Asari Spectre disguised as a human. A lot of these are of course nods to our own classics, but hilarious all the same. There's also more serious classics being remade by other races, such as Macbeth and Hamlet. One Hamlet production included a cast of all Elcor, where they only use their body language and pheromones to convey the emotions of the play instead of using their words. When the play released in 2185, it became extremely popular despite being over 14 hours long. Books are also very popular among the Citadel races, with one even being written by a CSEC officer about the Citadel Council and the true story of the Geth threat. Acting as Counselor Tevos' personal guard, he was able to reveal the truth of the Geth activity and the Council's negligence, and he revealed everything from his time working under Counselor Tevos. And while some novels are written to expose cold, hard truths, some are for hotter purposes. Fornax is a spicy magazine sold on Omega. It contains sexy images of various races, from Asari, Quarians, Drell, Batarian, and even Hanar. Within 5 years of its first publication, it became the first human magazine to offer full 5-sensory stimulation. It even has special editions such as Krogasm and Genet Elcor. The magazine is extremely popular, and each month it sells around 127 million copies. And I'm sure Grunt could tell you all about the Krogan special edition that he purchased. The entertainment scene within the Mass Effect world is a lot larger than we get to see, and also a lot weirder than we've experienced. In 2186, Psiotics became popular. The latest trend in body modification that started on Ilium began to spread to other clubs. It works by injecting specialized capsules under the skin that react to certain audio frequencies by lighting up. The light can be any color, but the most popular is a purple that mimics the glow of biotics. Typically, an injection lasts for 1 evening, and the capsule is supposed to disintegrate in the skin afterwards. But the true effects and long-term side effects are unknown. As for sports, they have changed a lot as we knew them. Over 150 years in the future, sports like soccer, football, and volleyball are still played. But new sports have also emerged. Biotaball is one of those new sports, born of biotic abilities and talent. Players score by getting a ball into a basket with only the use of their biotics. And in 2185, a new record was set. During a game between the Washington Hackers and Usaro Maestros, they broke the record for the longest game with 91 minutes. After those 91 minutes, the Usaro Maestros won by 79-77. This win would advance them to the semifinals, where they would play the Seattle Sorcerers. Basketball may have a new version like Biotaball, but for sports like football, initially a human-only sport, other races have joined and excelled. In 2185, the New York Giants defeated the Beijing Dragons in Super Bowl 219. The quarterback was a Krogan named Bragus Thule, and he helped win the game with his 69-yard pass. After the public learned about the Protheans, many minds struggled to process the information, but some saw it as a sign. On Earth, Palaven, and Manavai, the Church of the Divine Plan arose, born of the Prothean influence. They believed that the Citadel was constructed by the Protheans as a space ark, used to preserve life when gamma rays would burst or other lethal space weather swept through the galaxy, exterminating all but the faithful. Their religion was seen as some kind of apocalyptic cult, but they were also amassing a ton of weapons and money, for what is unknown. In 2186, a plastic surgeon on Earth was arrested for murdering Asari, specifically for their telomerase, a substance essential to slowing down the aging process. The plastic surgeon killed over 30 Asari for her plan to engineer her own tissues, but apparently it didn't work and she was still ugly. New food fads were also popular in the Milky Way galaxy, first with Reversal and then with the Scale. Reversal is a new gastrointestinal immunosuppressant that allows Dextro-Levo species to safely eat food that they usually couldn't. It is extremely expensive and only lasts for 24 hours. And it's even worse that at the end of it, you have to throw up the food before the treatment wears off. It became very popular in the restaurant scene. The Scale is a new nanotech diet that essentially monitors how much you eat and then stops the digestion process after a certain threshold is reached. Any excess food is turned into waste and isn't absorbed by the body. It was both marketed as a practical and safe diet solution, but also as a miracle for those with allergies. Unfortunately, it didn't really take off after it caused the death of 4 humans and 1 Volus. You have to ingest the device for it to work, and while it was shipped with safeguards in place, unfortunately hackers got full control of it and changed all of its settings to dangerous parameters. They were reducing the intake settings below what the device could even do, and they were dying from it. In total, there were 39 deaths. After these, the market for the device crashed, and the company behind it Black Horse Foods, issued a formal recall, and medical authorities on Citadel Space Planets called for all retailers to remove the device from their shelves. The scale was still approved for medical allergies, but in the wake of the recall and several deaths, the device lost its popularity. Varan fighting and racing became very popular, and became even more popular to gamble on. And in 2185, a record of 7.3 million credits was paid for breeding rights to a Varan named Gorfang Akash Himan Igol Forvos, a Varan who shined at the Intercolony Varan Kennel Club show. Gorfang is a red-striped Varan from Tuchanka, who has torn the heads off of a dozen armored mercs, and he has a bite with more than 2 metric tons of pressure per square centimeter. Quarians also have a little bit of weird lore. The Quarians wear some kind of diaper in their suits. In Ascension, we learn that their suits are equipped to store several days' worth of waste in sealed compartments between the inner and outer layer. The suit can then be flushed like normal, discharging the waste into any common sanitation facility like a toilet. This is one of those things that I shared because if I have to know it, so do you. The Collectors also have some hidden lore that is really only known if you play the multiplayer. We know that the Collectors are the result of Protheans being changed into husk, but it's their connection to the Leviathan that is more interesting and weird, because there's Collectors who didn't turn out to be like the ones that Shepard meets, but instead when the Leviathans fought the Collectors, they used a thrall device that severed their connection to Harbinger. It killed most of the Collectors as a result, but a few survived. These few survivors decided to take up arms against the Reapers, and they joined Shepard's fight in honor of their people and past. Protheans appointed avatars to embody and model a single virtue for their society. The awakened Collector's virtue is vengeance. By joining the Alliance and Shepard to help fight the Reapers, they fought alongside the N7 Special Ops, a team of unofficial N7 operatives that operate alongside Shepard to fight Cerberus, Reapers, and even the Collectors. And that is all the weird lore for this video. There's a lot of lore in Mass Effect that is kind of obscure, found in blogs, tweets, multiplayer, and the Cerberus Daily News Post. These parts of smaller bits of lore are really interesting and they add a lot to the world building of Mass Effect. And I hope they bring back something similar. Something like the Cerberus Daily News where there's random and weird stories to pay attention to. But let me know what you think. What weird lore do you know about Mass Effect? And did you learn anything new in this video? I'm also trying something new with my thumbnails. Let me know if you like it or not. I had some character PNGs commissioned by Outlet, and they did a really good job, so I will be including those in all my thumbnails, but I'm not sure about the dark black background, but anyways, let me know what you think. And if you're looking for more lore videos like this, check out the playlist at the end where I have several Mass Effect lore videos and theories and speculation about Mass Effect 5. Thank you so much for watching, thank you to my channel members, thank you to my Patreon members, thank you all so much for your support, and I'll see you next time.